I'm blessed to know you. What's your wife's name?
Heather.
Mm-hmm. I'm telling you right now, this episode, this conversation, this is for Evelyn. I just wanted to. I didn't mean to cut through your thing, but like this is for her, and I did not.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I didn't get a chance to obviously know her, but I, as a parent, I understand how hard that probably was. You know what I mean? Mm. And you know, I only get a glimpse. You know, I don't, and a glimpse is already not too much, but it's tough just to try and put it in my head. Mm. Especially now that I have my kiddo. But this is for her and for your wife. So
thank you so much.
And I hope she's doing great. You know, I hope that you both seem like you have a bond, like this strong thing. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? So. Ladies and gentlemen, just having this little conversation that I've had with this guest, I know that he is the strongest, don't you laugh, his philosophy on not only his mixed martial arts career and the future of it is as bright as it could be, but the philosophy and the strength that comes from the words of this individual not only reflects on his record, but also in the character in his heart. And I have known that since I met him at Glory Overland Park location. And I really hope that I can do this interview justice and show you the things that I've seen and that I've heard from him. So without further ado, he is 5-0, right? He's from Glory Overland Park. I just said that. And one of my good friends and just someone that I could learn from at any moment just by being with him for an hour. Stephen Heston, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Stephen, for being here.
Man, well, Chase, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity, really appreciate being here. And even just the conversation we've had thus far, I've really, really enjoyed it and really enjoyed getting to know your story a little bit more as well. And I think there's a lot that I can learn from you as well. So.
Oh, how humble. See, I told you. Okay, that's it. Goodbye. That's the end of the episode. But no, I just want to say that. Cheers. But there is something.
Water is so good.
It was so good. Yeah, go ahead and show that full. This is. I just want to let you know. Liquid Death. I just want to spout that out here. Just.
The sparkling water is the best.
Oh, it's so good. Mm. But the thing I wanted to start with was the story. So, when I walked in to Glory Overland Park, it was not. You said it best too. We all have an insecurity, right? Like I went in with an insecurity of not being good enough into that gym, right? Which at the time, I would make it seem like I'm just being humble about it. No, I don't know anything. I'm just here. No, I'm not. It just kind of seemed like I was reserved, right? But I was being reserved because of the insecurity. And so when I walked in there, my insecurity was life was enough. I was done. I was like, there's nothing left. Like, so I had been to what I thought was the end of my rope. I was like, listen, like, now I'll go into my story after this, but it was like the insecurity was I just wanted to not be here. I wanted to die, but I didn't want to do it myself necessarily. So I was like, well, why not just get beat up? And then we'll just be humble about being beat up. Right? Okay? It sounds so dumb.
No. I understand.
You understand that one? And so it was like, so when I walked in there, it was, I may have walked in with that, but even after, and it might have stuck for a week at the most, but after a week of being at Glory MMA and training with you guys, right? And finding a brotherhood with this group of guys that I never thought I would have, ever. Because my parents were very, not against sports, but they were very cautious of safety, head trauma, right? This and that. So when I tell them I'm doing jujitsu or I'm doing, I'm sparring or I show up with like a bruise or something, they think it's the end of the world. It's my boy, right? Like it's the end of the right. And so when I told them I was doing this, I mean, they're my parents, so they probably had the sense of there's something hidden in Chase. Like the Insecurity. I'm assuming they read because they're my parents, but you are a person who I would roll with, and who taught me that my limits are adjustable. So like, I thought I could only take this much. Turns out I can take this much. Maybe I can only go above that level this much. So like physical damage, right? So I remember one round. I've been there probably 5-6 months, and I'm not terrified of you because of like the way that you would put it on people, because you don't. But you do know what this game is, what MMA is. And so I remember I was just terrified of you, because I was like, not in a bad way, because I was like, I don't feel prepared to take on this guy at all, right? And the reason was because you were so good. Like, so this was probably you either had your first fight or it was preparation for the second fight, I think. And I remember it was my turn to go with you, and I was like, I'm feeling cocky today. I'm feeling confident. Like everything was good. And I remember it was just teeps to the body, like teeps to the front, right? Maybe a leg chop, right? And I remember in that moment, it taught me that I have control over my thoughts, because I can sit here and I can go, that teep hit me in the liver, right? Oh, my leg is really sore. Even though we have pads on, we're all safe, no one's getting brutally damaged. But by doing that one time, by the way, you taught me in 5 minutes what doctors could never tell me, which was you have control over this thing up here. The thoughts that you think, like, you can control. And if you can do that in an environment like the gym, my entire life was different. Just from that one encounter with you in a sparring round once.
Man, well, I don't really know what to say to all that. I do, when it comes to controlling what you can control, and surpassing your limits, I think that's a really, especially in the gym. I think one of the things that people kind of allow, myself included, they just allow it to slip a little bit, is body language, right. and facial expressions. You'll hear some of the different coaches at Glory calling out, "Get the drama off your face," and it's right. Like they're telling you to look like a winner.
It does a lot more than you think. Mm-hmm. Just this.
Yeah.
Which is also why that was terrifying for me going into that round, is because you never wore anything.
Man, there's a lot of people kind of have this idea that I have a lot of cardio. I don't consider myself to be a cardio machine by any stretch of the mile, but like even after a lot of my fights as well, it's like I've heard from guys just like, man, your cardio is good, and you use it as a weapon. And it's like I don't really count. I try not to count on my cardio, but I do try to make my presentation, no matter how tired I am, to be approximately the same, like to be approximately similar. So it's there's not a whole lot that can be read from it. Right. So if I am tired, I'm trying not to let my opponent know, because it's kind of like blood in the water, and when the shark smells it, and it's like, then they really, really go after it. Right. And I had a couple of earlier experiences early on when I had started MMA that I showed weakness. Like I flinched on a strike or something like that, and then immediately after, I think like one of them was Kendrick, and immediately like I flinched on a liver shot, and then he immediately just unloaded like everything at it, just like started throwing everything right to that direction. And it was all I could do to just stay standing through that whole round. That was like right when I had started. Maybe been doing it for a couple months, MMA for a couple of months. I had already been doing jiu-jitsu for a number of years. But it to me, like I really try to remind myself of like the Stoics and like the saying Memento Mori, which translates roughly to remember you will die. And actually, funny enough, when Trey has a tattoo on his chest that says "All men die."
And it's subtle. It's like just right here.
I saw that on like either the first or second training session at Glory that I had, and just like, yep, this is the place. It's like,
you were like,
this coach gets it.
You're
this
like,
coach
I know
gets
this.
it. Yeah, it's like and then as you were saying, like the brotherhood around the training community and what Trey is building there, and the principles that he's choosing to operate off of, and telling other people to start running their life off of. It's like the marathon man himself. It's like running the marathon, chop wood, carry water, desert children, like all of these little phrases, all of these different sayings that he's constantly telling people. It's like martial arts Monday. He's a martial arts machine.
Oh, by the way, he made me like Monday.
Yeah, I love Mondays. I love Mondays because of
him
martial
and
arts.
GaryVee. I was like, okay, I'm sold on Monday.
Oh man, you like GaryVee?
My gosh, another guy who I would watch. So if I had any mental doubt, right, any doubt. So say, I'm not saying the gym didn't do it for me, but hypothetically, if like I had a good day and maybe it wasn't like, I'm maybe a little cocky today or whatever. He goes, listen, dude, like you're like something simple. It's like your time is short. Like whatever you want to do. He goes, you're still young, right? He's 40 something now? Late 40s? Yeah. He's like, I still feel young. And then I like think about it, and I think about like my parents and their jobs and their career, and how a lot of these adults still feel like they have nothing left in the tank. And I'm like, you have double my life of experiences that you could. And now you have the internet. We have a facility to come talk to. We have opportunities that are out there that you have no idea. But it just takes that simple little person to tell you, one, there's the opportunity, and two, you can do anything.
Yeah.
Even if, but sometimes it doesn't come off nice. But sometimes you don't need to hear it in a nice way.
Yeah, man. GaryVee, he's one of the reasons I've been able to do what I've been able to do financially, which is nothing great. I mean, I've been hit with some different medical expenses at different points, and so kind of gotten my feet taken out under me a bit already in an industry in which, like we all know amateur MMA fighters are not making very much money.
No.
Hate to break it to you guys.
Are you kidding me right now?
We're not very rich yet.
Dana White.
Yeah. So, but I haven't really had like an official job in well over a year. I've been essentially side hustling it. And I've bought and sold a lot of stuff on eBay and stuff, and through like Craigslist, and then I've also what I've done more is like trades and stuff like that. So like building decks and building fences and stuff, and but GaryVee, he is one of the guys who has motivated me and given me the confidence to be able to do some of the things. Like my very first deck that I sold, my very first fence that I sold, and I don't like own a fencing company or anything like that. I just needed money, and I saw that somebody needed their fence fixed badly.
Right, you saw the opportunity.
And so like I knocked on their door, and I was like, hey, do you want me to pull together a bid for your fence? And they were like, sure. And so I pulled together a bid for the fence. Like I measured everything out, counted out how much, and then like I downloaded the Home Depot app on my phone and found like I could just order all of the stuff and have it sent there.
So you wouldn't have to pick it up.
Yeah. So
you didn't need a truck or anything like that to transport.
Yeah. So I didn't need any of that. And then so I did. So they ended up just buying. So they ended up agreeing to buy the new fence and to get the new fence with me. And so we did that. They gave me a check, but I don't know how to build a fence at this point. So then I have to go find a crew who knows how to build a fence.
Right.
It's like
oh
like
my goodness,
a
dude.
big fence. It was like $3,000 worth of fencing supplies.
and you were like this. I didn't know we'd even get this far.
And so like I have the supplies ordered, and I have the check. I've been paid for this fence. I just haven't ripped out the old fence yet, or built the new one. And I found a guy who he does it, and I ended up hiring him to do it. And so he came. He ripped out the old fence, took that to the dump, and then he and his crew built the whole fence for me. And I paid them, and then walked away with like $2,000 for ordering the supplies, and like asking if they needed help with their fence. But that was a Gary Vaynerchuk thing. That was like,
dude,
it was
just when I thought that's like, people don't understand, right? So like, you have the best part about that whole story. You have no idea about any of it. Okay, you have zero. There's no. You go. I don't even know how to build a fence. It just looks like shit. So why not just go take the opportunity to see if I can even have it shot, right? It's like the same reason why this studio exists.
Mm-hmm.
I would much rather take the risk than just sit idly in my bedroom feeling semi-comfortable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Rather than take some of these, like, the idea that I'm going to be, so November 20th is my birthday, so I'll be 26.
Hell yeah, happy birthday.
Well, thank you, sir.
Early birthday.
Early birthday. Having all you guys is my gift. But
my presence is my presence.
that's for sure. Okay, I take it back from the intro. There's very little humility in it. but I was listening to someone talk about the power of the word I don't know. And you can take that away very quickly, which is exactly what you did. You didn't stop at, well, I don't know how to build a fence. You were like, no, just test this, then test that. If I fail, then I know that I failed and I won't do that next time, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, and the worst case scenario in that situation with the fence is that, oh, great, this one person gets angry, right? Maybe I don't have, yeah, I mean, because they paid the check and they bought the supplies, right?
Well, I mean, at that point, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this to some people because I wasn't operating with any insurance.
Yeah.
And it was built up to code and everything like that because I did it. I found a company who did have insurance, and we ran the construction under them and everything like that.
See, but I bet you didn't know that until
I didn't even know the risk that I was taking until like we're halfway through, and he's just like, so whose insurance is this one being on? Is it under your company? And at that point, like I didn't have like a company formed yet.
Yeah.
And she's like, can we run it under your company name on this one? I'll get the next one.
Right.
He's like, sure. And it's like,
you go,
great.
You go, thank you. But that's what did you say before? The Stoics of control what you can and understand that there's some things that you just can't. But at the same time, you have to, like, rolling with it is what you said. That's life, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a part of the mantra, and I just love that because it's like your character as well, you know. And I don't think that gets not only taught. It doesn't get taught. I'm gonna say it straight out. It does not get taught, right? They would rather teach you in school like algebra, which technically I'm an engineer now. It's all automated stuff. It's all on the computer. Like things, they do that itself. They give you the data. Like you don't have to do the math anymore. And I'm like, but then people know algebra, but they don't know how to balance use their money properly. Right? That's something that I had to find. So the idea that you were like listening to this guy tell me that I don't have my finances in check, that I can do more with my life by just taking a couple risks and getting out there and experiencing life in general, right? I used to think that I was the only one, like, because most of the people around me, other than my mom, they don't really hustle. They don't, not like, do things, but they rather just do the one thing, which is work and go home.
Yeah.
And I go, how is that fulfilling? And I'm like, I can't do that. And I thought I was the only one. Then I walked into the gym. Then I met every one of you guys. And there's a different story, there's a different path, an unexpected path that got everybody in this building. But the mantra is the same. It's like I took a risk and I came here instead of going there. Gomi was driving down the road and saw the sign, right? It wasn't on Google Maps. It's like I was playing with him on the episode that was like we're dealing with fate, like destiny. Like whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and there's nothing that, it's kind of not pre-planned and planned out, but like we're just living through this every day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think once you take that, like once I put that in my heart, it was kind of like, well, then I have to make the most of it. If I want to be happy, I deserve to do the things that I want. Does that make sense? Because I don't believe happiness is like the joy that you get. Happiness to me is like you wake up, right? There's something that even if you have to go to that job, you have to go to work, right?
Yeah.
You find something in that job that drives you, that fulfills you to keep pushing forward, to keep moving. And then if you have any energy left, and again, some people do, some people don't, then maybe you have a podcast, maybe you have a room, maybe you have a business that we do. We have DNC Productions under an LLC that runs through this building. So if anybody wanted the cameras, the services, any of that stuff, like you can go Google it and you can find it and rent out the studio. Like learning how to do all that stuff. I knew squat. Zero. All of this is learned from testing, fuck up, testing, little better, fuck up.
Yeah.
That's the progression. And it's just like if you figure out that that's what life is, then happiness is just that much closer. It's like within your grasp for the first time ever that I've ever felt. And again, a lot of that came from the same things like you guys would teach me just by training with you.
Yeah, I think it's this idea of getting really comfortable with failure early on.
Yes.
Obviously in a competitive setting, you want to fail in the correct place.
Yes.
Because failure is a non-negotiable, and it's gonna happen if you want to get better. If you haven't failed at anything, you're not doing anything. And
GaryVee.
Yeah. So it's like failure is a non-negotiable.
Right.
And so especially in MMA and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, when it really matters, so like a competition for jiu-jitsu, and then you get your competition matches or a fight for MMA, or God forbid you're in a situation out in public in which you need to restrain somebody.
Right.
Like when it really comes down to it and it really matters, you don't want to fail then.
Right.
Like, and so you want to do all of your failure early on in private.
Right.
And you want to work out the kinks, and you want to, one of the things that I used to do, was I would kind of try to hide my failure. I would feel ashamed of it.
Right.
And that was, like, especially early on in jiu-jitsu, I would feel really ashamed leaving class when people who I thought shouldn't
Right.
Would get something on me. And, I would feel like absolutely devastated. And then it hit me, that it's like, that's the wrong attitude to have. Like, the attitude is, how do I get to 10,000 taps as quickly as possible? Right. So like, I mean, 10,000 is just it's just a number. And I mean, there's the 10,000 hour thing or something like that, but it's just this idea of like, you get into the training room and your goal is to get yourself into situations as quickly as possible where there is a high risk of failure, and then try to navigate that process.
Right.
And so from then on out, like I
I dedicate a large portion of my open mat sparring. I sacrifice position, and I try to work out a bad position to fail early on.
That's so good.
And so it's like as soon as it like as soon as the round starts, I'm not looking to be like disrespectful of my opponent or anything like that.
Right.
But most people are really confident. Like you don't actually have not really confident. Most people who are in the gym training consistently are competent. They have like a degree of skill set. And so if you just like don't pay attention for 10, 15 seconds, they're going to get something on you.
They will get something.
You're going to be in trouble. You're going to be in trouble. So it's just so quick. And so it's really easy. It's really easy to just get into a super shitty situation, especially grappling with the Glory guys. And then also at Brazil Academy, the other place where I train and teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And so I'll give up bad position and I'll try to work my way out of it. And funny enough, in my last MMA fight, I got my back taken and he had a fully locked rear naked choke in the first round.
Holy
that I thank God was able to get out of.
Right.
And like as soon as I got out of it, I remember, like, I don't remember a lot from that fight. But I do just remember like just being grateful for like the amount of times where like I felt embarrassed, like being the blue belt or the purple belt on the mat with the white belt on the back. And just thinking just like, oh, like what if coach happens to look over and he's like, oh man, the white belt's on his back. And so like, and just feeling like embarrassed, but knowing that it's like, okay, let's put the ego aside. Like,
ego dies at the door, whatever they say.
The ego does not die at the door. You have to kill the ego yourself.
That's the phrase. Or someone else will. Okay? Someone else will kill it.
So, yeah, that's kind of my little spin on that.
I mean, because at the same time, like, I remember, and a lot of it, I don't know how clear you are on, I never wrestled. I never did jiu-jitsu. Right. My parents did not. I was in sports my entire childhood up until about high school, when then they realized that, it was like, well, I guess I can speak about it now because it's not that big of a secret, but it was a really big story from where I grew up way south of here.
Gotcha.
So there wasn't a protocol for football for concussions. And what had happened, like there was, but it was kind of like, give yourself 7 days and get back out there.
Yeah, kind of like high school hydration testing for wrestling.
Exactly. There you go. There's all like, it was like, oh no, it's our star player. So their star player, their running back, he so it was so a week before this occurred. So he, in a game, he got hit and got a concussion, right? But then he was like, no, I'm fine, right? He would just talk them, and of course they're just like, he's tough, right? There's no big deal. Just throw him back in there, right?
Got your southern draw on that.
Yeah, so that's how south it is, right? And so it's kind of like, dude, when I played football in high school or in middle school, the equipment, I remember I was putting on the strap on the front to lock in the shoulder pads, and I'm tiny. Like, I have a tiny frame, right? Okay, and I'm probably the same height I am, 5'8" and a half, 5'9" with shoes. And so I'm probably the same height that I always was. Because I remember it was like 3rd grade, 4th grade. They're like, you're tall. And I was like, I was really tall compared to everybody else. And then I just stopped.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And so they were like, you're going to be big, man. And they would like put me down with the big guys. Like, you're going to be tall. And they're like, it's too early to tell. So then I had these pads, and they have a little clip, and you latch it and pull it. And it has like an elastic underneath, right? I don't know if you played athletics or football. No. Okay. Well, when I did that, it goes... And the strap ripped completely. The elastic just ripped, and it shifted the whole pad. And I go, excuse me. I was like, I need a new set of these. And they were like, we don't have that. And I'm like, you don't have that? I was like, there's like the high school has theirs over there. They go, you're middle school. You don't get equipment like that. And they duct taped it.
Duct taped it.
Duct tape. Yes.
Oh man.
They duct taped that side.
Well, how well did it hold?
Terribly. That no joke, that same practice broke my collarbone. So I'm tall and skinny, Okay? They have a drill. We have one guy here and one guy here. And you run. I run this way. I have the ball, right? My goal is to juke him out, right? He can't get me, right? I forget what it's called. But I remember this guy, and I'm looking at him. And I have the mentality that I've developed now through Glory. But it was like, don't show any of that weakness, right? He's bigger. It's very obvious there's a discrepancy in what's about to happen. So it's my job not to get hit. Now, I'm thinking that as I'm running, right? Get smashed. Immediately get smashed. But he hit me from the side with the duct tape. So what he did was he tackled at my waist, right? I mean, this dude's probably like a grown man size human being.
Yeah.
Right? I'm 120 pounds. Okay? I'm a seventh grader, dude. And this is like a full-grown adult. This dude has facial hair. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a man in front of me. And he tackles me. And he puts his helmet, the face shield, right on my collarbone. Right there.
Oh, no. And
then
fall on it?
Like this. His face is right here. And everything he had, he ran and wanted just to cream the kid because the coaches, tough guy, teach him how to be tough. Right? I get smashed. I land on my back. Boom. Head hits that. Like, I don't get a concussion from that. But I feel my collarbone, like, bend like a rubber band. And I didn't crack it all the way through, but I had cracked it, like, very, very close.
Oh, man.
So then I'm crying. I'm like, fuck, it doesn't feel right? And, it's my right one, sorry. So it shifts, and he put his face here, and then boom. And just kind of, they call it like a gangrene, like bend and break. Yeah. And then when I went I was throwing the football because I was the quarterback position, like backup to the backup. And I go to throw it with my right arm.
Oh, no, right hand, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Dude, I cannot describe the pain. But it just went and then cracked all the way to, like, almost the bottom. And I remember throwing it and feeling it and hearing it. And I remember I collapsed. And then my buddy, his dad was a doctor, stepdad. And so he ran out to me, and he, like, started touching it. And I'm, like, crying, right? Like, it's in front of everybody. And the coach is just like, get the fuck up. You're fine, right? And I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, I'm clearly not fine.
Yeah.
And that's just the mentality. And so, I mean, now they probably have good funding and all this kind of stuff. But the adjacent school had that same kind of mentality. And so he had gotten a concussion in the game. Then in practice, he kept getting hit. Boom, 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 right? Because he's the running back. So he gets the ball, and he gets to fight through the people. So you're going with a really it was a serious concussion. So, like, he would go to stand up, and he collapsed. And then they were like, oh, no. They picked him up, and he said it was fine. And then no one has any idea, no protocol, whatever. So he's sitting down, and he goes right back into that same game, plays. Turns out he had a bleed in his brain.
Oh, fuck.
Yep. Didn't say anything. Was having bad headaches. Didn't mention anything because he didn't want to get that stigma of not being tough and not being able to play.
Yeah.
And then also at the same time, the coaches wanted their star player to win football games for them. Well, the next week, he had bled all week in his brain. He collapsed on the field. That was the last. Boom. Dropped.
Fuck.
Dropped dead on the field. They had to life flighted him out. Nope. Didn't make it. So from that point on, my parents were very cognizant of, protecting your head.
Yeah.
For me, it's like, I have a small neck, and, like, it's like I have a tiny neck and, like, an apple on a pencil. You know what I mean? So, like, if I let my head go back, so they were very much protecting of that, which I'm very thankful for, of course. But I've learned with my kid that there's situations where you have to let them try things that are dangerous.
Yeah.
But in a safe way. It's a Jordan Peterson method. I don't know if you know Jordan Peterson.
I do.
So
I'm not personally. I've been,
I was like, you do? Can I have his phone number? You know him personally?
I've been to one of his talks, but I didn't.
Really? Where was that?
Uptown Theater.
Wow.
Yeah, it was.
I'm jealous right now.
It was a number of months ago.
Recent?
No, I think I feel like it was in the spring, but I'm not remembering. I'm terrible with days. I just get up, train, and do the same thing every day, and so it all just kind of blends together.
Well, I mean, like he's another example of, like, he's the guy who can take something that's like just what people like a kernel of advice, and then breaks it down into a novel that you never could dissect yourself, if that makes sense. And one of them was the situation of, like, with your children to do that. And so like I've been putting, like if my son wants to try something, I'll let him do it. But again, you can control some things and you can't control other things. So you have to also control it and make it into not mold it into a safe environment, but make sure they're like jiu-jitsu, right? So when I put him in kids jiu-jitsu, it was not what he thought it was. So he was like, oh, I'm just going to wrestle and have fun and have like camp. And I go, that is not what this is. But I'll let you try it, right? Like that's, jiu-jitsu isn't, I'm not saying that the kids are being dangerous at Glory or anything like that. I'm not saying that they're not taught properly or restrained. They are probably the most well-behaved children.
They are excellently behaved children.
But the thing I wanted to teach him and show him was that these kids are this way because of this martial art. This taught them that. And if you aren't ready to hear that lesson, then you can try it now. I didn't tell him this. This is all for me. If he's not ready, he's not ready. If he doesn't like it, he doesn't like it. And I'm not going to force him to do it, right? I'm not going to, like something that I notice that parents do a lot is they take their insecurities and they're nasty and they put it on their kids, and then now the kids are an extension of the insecurity and they're an extension of them.
Yeah.
Very wrong.
I see it all the time where parents get really invested in their child's success, and that's a good thing. Right. But you can overdo it for sure, especially in athletics. It's almost as if they're trying to live through their kids sometimes. Like the parents had athletic aspirations that maybe weren't ever realized, and so they just want that for their kid. And sometimes the kid doesn't want it at all. And it's very, especially when you make it competitive at an early age, like 4 through 6 year olds, they should not really be competing very much in especially in like class. It should be games. It should be fun.
Right.
They should be enjoying it. And then like 8, maybe a little bit of like more competitive edge to the rounds, but still the emphasis needs to be on fun and enjoyment. But then like once they start getting 10 plus, like I feel like they can start, like they have the degree of agency to where it can come, their discipline can come of their own choice. Right. Because you can have a super disciplined 6-year-old, but if you have a super disciplined 6-year-old, that's because of the parents, right? Like, or the community around them, and it being heavily invested in socializing that child. It's not because that child wants to wake up at 6 a.m. to train or anything like that. And it's like, that's like some of the stories you can hear are absolutely ridiculous, but it's like, I think the emphasis early on, especially for the kids, is just like come in, work hard and enjoy it. But then there's structure and there is discipline in the rounds, and you do have to listen to the instructors, to the coaches, and there are goals that you're trying to achieve in jiu-jitsu and progress. So the big thing for me is just like, as you were saying, of just like the parents living like vicariously through their kids.
And you can see it like clear, because they're, it's like, I always imagine, like, you see the kid like and the mom's like, yeah, we're gonna do, this is gonna be a good class. It's gonna be class. You're like, you're not in the class. It's the kids' class.
Have you seen the some of Conor McGregor's reels boxing with his son? I think his youngest son.
I have not.
It like
I can't read what I'm about to hear. Also,
some of them are like. Connor is having to like bribe his kid to like get into it like right then, and he's like, oh, we'll go get this and that right after, but like
you're like
it's like you can hear him talking in the background trying to get him to hit his little kid, and his little kid is like like you can tell facial expression, he's just like not having it. He's not having any fun whatsoever. It's just like
uppercut, good job. Yeah, right. Well, and like I'll give a perfect example is, because I can speak from my perspective for my kid. So he's 8, and a year and a half ago, he was like, he saw me doing it and saw like, he saw I call it the sweat equity. He saw all the hard work, and he was like, I want to be something. I'm going to be just like you, Dad. Hold on, I'll cut it right here. I'm gonna close that window. because now it's dark.
Cool.
Yeah, no, it isn't. That's liquid death. But so from my perspective, it was so growing up. I mean, like I talked with Sam a little bit about it, but like I just asked him, have you ever been harassed or bullied or anything like that? And he's like, I think everyone has their kind of fair share, and
Yeah.
And for me, it was
Sometimes on both ends.
right. And for me, it was like I always found myself on the other end, the guy who was always getting the one, just because I grew really tall, so I was tall and skinny.
Mhm.
I mean, you could pick me up. I was light as a feather. So it was kind of like insecure other, like, dudes would come up and, like, oh, this is the girl I like. And then, like, Chase is right here. And, like, it was always kind of a target, right?
Mm.
No one believed it. No one cared. No one really mattered. So for me, it was like, I remember I would hate recess. I would hate, that's starting at my kid's age. And so something I had to do when he started 3rd grade was I had to, like, talk myself down. I'm like, he's going to be fine at recess, right? And so, but before that, it was kind of like he asked me to do jiu-jitsu. I didn't put him in it because of an insecurity I had of getting, like, beat up.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And so when he asked me, I said, of course you can. But I like to think that he made that choice because he saw the discipline and the requirements.
Yeah, well, they
needed.
do as you do, not as you say. So you can tell them to do one thing, but then you if you're showing them something different with your actions,
Exactly.
it robs your words of authority. Like, they won't actually listen if they see you do something else. But it's like when they see you doing something and then when they see you getting value out of it, like, little kids want to be like their parents. The vast majority of them, at least early on.
Yes, he does.
And unless, I mean, there are always the sad situations in which there's, like, toxic parents and there's some people who just they don't have parents that they want to model, but even that still serves as, like, an anti-model, if that makes sense.
Right.
Like, I kind of just made that term up, but, like, as a
It's
model
I
for
got
what
it
not
exactly.
to do.
Right.
So, like, especially during the formative years, it's like they're paying attention to what you're doing.
It is, and that caught me off guard because my kiddo, so he took, like, the testing and
Mm-hmm.
the beginning of school, and we found out that there was a discrepancy in, like, so he is very quick. He's very attentive,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, like, if it's a game, like he would have an image and he would answer, like, it's a cow, right? He was, if there was 190, he was the 99th percentile. He could see it, know it, and boom, 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 fast, right? That was a game to him, right? But retention and whether it came to, like, not necessarily problem solving, but, like, understanding deeper elements, that was too much. But he liked the game mode type deal. And so what kept happening is, like, you would think that you're doing something and he doesn't notice. But then a week later he goes, no, you did that last week. And I go, how'd you even know that I said that? And he was in the other room and just happened to hear that I said that. And you don't know what sets in with your kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so something that I wanted to instill in him is that he, of course, is my son, and I love him to death. But you're not me. Whatever you're made to be, whatever you're going to be. So, like, whatever you find enjoyment, that's for you, right? I'm here just to teach you morals and to raise you and to be your father. But I'm also not here to control what makes you happy. So, like, if you don't like to fight or you don't like jiu-jitsu the way that dad does, don't feel bad. It's just not your thing, right? And so, like, I remember I kept getting, like, hurt and around 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. And I remember, like, they would just throw me into shit or, like, punch me or do whatever. And I just take it because no one cared. And I'm like, I had to take the insecurity of not wanting my kid to be in that situation. And I had to take that anxiety out because it was just driving me crazy. So the minute I removed myself from that situation and was, like, kind of understood that that mantra I've already said, which is they're not the extension of you. They're a completely separate individual, right?
Yeah.
It changed everything. Changed the way that not that I was raising him wrong before that, but it really opened my eyes to, the things I was seeing with parents and with their kids and what was wrong and what was negative. And, I can control what I can control, but sometimes I can't. So, like, So I'll just start with the story about his birth. So I was 16. He's 8. So his mom was 2-3 years older than me. So obviously not planned. And so, I was like, yay, dumb 16 Chase was like, I'm going to be a dad. Cool, that's so great. And then everyone around me was like, your life's over.
Kind of freaking out for you a little bit.
Yeah, everyone. It's over. Like, nothing's what?
They're wrong, though, by the way. They're wrong about that.
Oh, yeah, I know that. And they can definitely see that if they watch this. And it wasn't necessarily like my parents, because it was just everyone around me. Friends didn't talk to me. People didn't. And so, which, again, that's totally fine. But anyway, so everything was perfectly fine. Then it came down to the day that he was born. So everything was fine. We had ultrasounds. We had regular checkups. She was healthy. Everything was good up until the moment he was birthed. So, and she was quick, too. I think it was 3 hours.
Oh, wow. That is fast.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so what had happened is he had a condition called CDH, which was diaphragmatic hernia. So what your diaphragm is, a spot forms, like a hole. And so it just is open. The cells don't form to cover the hole up and make a full diaphragm. And so all of the lower intestines down here were up here because it snuck its way through the hole as he's in the womb, swimming around. So, and it's really hard to spot that back then, about 8 years ago. But now they can do this thing which is just amazing. They can do this surgery they did for him in utero without disrupting any of it, which is amazing. And so it went from back when he was born, it was 50-50. There's a 50-50 shot that they'll be okay because of how much trauma for the baby. So now I think it's like 80-30 or 70-30 or 80-20, something like that.
Still not great odds, but better than 50-50.
Yes, right. And so it's just like, especially if you catch, and that's if you don't catch it. If they catch it like in an ultrasound and they see the whole form, they can go in there and just do it in utero and be fine. But so he came out, and when I tell you this, it's like, I guess I can put a disclaimer. Like, I'm not going to go into graphic detail about birthing process, but that condition, for whatever reason, causes a buildup of the fluid. So she was giant. So we thought he was going to be big. But he basically was he was maybe 5 pounds. So he was a 5-pound baby in an ocean, right? Because it was just producing a lot more water. And so another thing we didn't know is that where the placenta was and where the cord attaches, his cord attached not in the middle and grew from there attached to the side. So half of it he was getting filtered to the placenta, and the other half had reached through the sac of waters and attached to his mother on the inside. There's no way to see that. So like if it looks like this, 2 of them were attached to the placenta and 2 of them just kept reaching. Like whatever that bond is, which made a little rip, like a little tear in the lining of the uterus. And
yeah.
And so so now you have a giant buildup of water and you have a tear. You have pressure, right? You're squeezing and contracting to birth a child, right? That pressure has to go somewhere. My kiddo shot out like a cannon. The doctor nearly missed. Like this. I'm standing next to her. I'm watching the whole thing go down. And I see my kiddo shoot out. And he plays it like like he just played football. Oh, gosh. Right? And then usually I'm waiting like, cut the cord, do the whole thing. Nope. He goes, no, uh-oh. And I go, well, uh-oh, what? He goes, cuts the cord. He goes to cry. Nothing. Turns immediately blue. Passes out. Right? And then what we don't know is they paged the code blue because he wasn't breathing. So then I watched him. This happened in like 5-10 minutes. Then they take him over to this little cart next to him. 3 nurses. They're doing breaths. I see his chest caving in like it's a doll. 1, 2, 3. And they're doing that for him, right? He's not here. And so the tear, so that's happening with Madden over here. At the same time, his mother is like half gone. Because not only so the rip and the pressure, It means it ripped it ripped it in half. So half of it was still inside, half of it came out, right? And I was like, there's a lot more blood and stuff that came out that when he shot out that it didn't look right. You know, I've seen the video. I've seen the health class video. And this one did not look like that. And, you know, so they were all okay. No one was panicking, right? No one, which is really great. They kind of held it all together as a team, kind of kept it up until they did the CPR. But she kept passing out. And she'd wake up.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, what's going on with her? You know, and, you know, the meter, beep, 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 like things are going nuts.
Oh, crazy, I bet. Yeah.
And what happened is she was bleeding from that tear.
Internally?
Mm-hmm. And so,
God damn.
And so they were like, oh my goodness. So they had to do all that. And he had to go in there and pull the other half out, all this stuff, right? And so, I doctor.
Yeah.
And so, thank goodness she got the epidural when she did. But, so they're doing all of that. She's passing out. He's doing that. And they finally get him. I'll show you. I actually have the picture. I'll show you exactly what he looked like. But it looked like he was a fish out of water type deal. Because what happens is all the intestines had come up into that lung cavity. So his lungs never grew. So when he was ready and hit oxygen, his lungs were not ready to work. They weren't operable. So they didn't move. So like here's him and the nurses right after. So he's about 5 pounds.
Jesus.
And he just came to. And I'm over here like happy that they finally did. But,
yeah.
But and you kind of like chest kind of caves in, but he was going like, and so he wasn't even. He had like one lung that was kind of okay, and so they sedated him, and then they brought us in. And for a 5-pound baby, they told us, they go, listen, it's about the size of a quarter. Now he can barely fit in my. That's like that's like most of it.
Yeah.
And so he had 0. So we're like, what do we do? So they sedated him, and they put him in the waiting period room, and they go, if he makes it through the night, then you know he can go. He'll go to Children's Mercy and get surgery the next day, and then he'll have a pretty lengthy recovery, but he should be okay. But it did not instill confidence when his primary care was like, I've seen these, and like this is going to be a tough night for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of waiting the whole time. And he made it. He was sedated and he was stable the whole night, so they felt confident to life flight him over to Children's Mercy. And they did so. He got there quick. He had the surgery the next day. And so what they do is, they used to do this. I'm glad they don't. So I didn't know any of this. I'm 16 years old. I'm 16.
Man.
I'm dumb. Like I'm a dumb kid.
Yeah, even if you were smart for 16, you'd still probably be
still
dumb.
a dumb kid. And so what they used to do is they used to go armpit to waist, and they would cut and they would open it because to get to the spot.
Access.
Now they just do microscopic. So they do cut here, belly button, cut down here from the backside. So they do little cuts and then put the small tools and do everything that way. And what they do is they put a patch over the hole, and then it grows with his diaphragm. And they go, luckily his lungs develop until he's 7, so he won't have any damage or lung. I don't want to say damage. I would say he will have full capacity of his lungs because they will develop. Yeah. And so he's running around all day long. There's no problem. I think there's a 30% reherniation. So he could reherniate and it could come undone or something could happen again. But I think it could be lower now. But but yeah, so and then he was on 2 ventilators for a month and a half, kind of in and out of sedation, getting food through his nose through like a PICC tube. He had nurses on staff. We couldn't touch him for a month and a half.
Fuck.
Couldn't pick him up. We just had to watch him through this little coop. And I was still in high school because he was born in March. So every day I would drive to Kansas City at Children's Mercy, and then I would drive the hour drive back to school and where my parents lived every day.
Man.
And I did that for, I think he came home in either the end of June or beginning of July. And then that was still kind of concerning because they were like, we're going to send him home with a tube, but we're going to put it in his stomach. So we were going to have to feed him that way. And I'm like, no, that's not going to work. So we had to then spend more time and teach him how to use because he had been, no one touched him for a month, and he was getting food just kind of in a sedated mode.
Yeah.
So he didn't know how
have
to use
the mouth muscles yet to
use a bottle or a nipple.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like, that was like one of the hardest things ever, was like trying to get him to even eat that way. So then you could feed him regularly like a regular kid. And then every year for like year 1 through 4, there was something that happened. So like my kiddo he's scarred up from all these things, but hopefully he get bigger and they'll get smaller. But he has like a little mark on his back here. You can see the little cuts that he has from the laparoscopic surgery. And then like 1 year he was fine, and then he just kept his leg up like this. And then you would go to pull it, and he would just cry bloody murder. And we're like, what is going on? And so we took him back to the hospital. Some odd thing, a pocket of infection had gotten trapped between the joint. And it just was pushing. So we were pulling his leg out of socket when you would go to touch it, which is why he was screaming. Now, we didn't actually like pull it out, but like it was getting, like when you like when you tap for something and you're like, it's coming out, right? Yeah, we were just doing that, and I'm like, oh no. And so then he had to, he was there for a month because of that. And then 1 year he got RSV, and it was coughing real bad, has small lungs that are still kind of growing. We were there for another month, right? And it's still touch and go. Another one was he has a slit right here, and where the trachea and all that is, just cysts were in there, and he had this thing that was just bulging, just out of nowhere, just like showed up, and that was just the surface. It went deeper, so they had to take out some of the esophagus. They had to take out some of this. He's had 3 surgeries on the same scar.
Like, just a benign cyst, or like
a lot of them. Yeah. So they were just cysts. So like my mom's side of the family gets cysts. So, and I have a wicked scar on my back because they thought it was small, just like his looked small, just a little bulge, but underneath it was like a golf ball, and then one underneath it for me that was on my back, and it was tied into like my spine. So when I knew it was a problem is when I remember it had to be like Nick or Gomi went to grab up top. They pushed it. Everything shut down. Zoom. And I for a second I just dropped, and they thought I was going for a takedown. No. So then they stuffed it, and I'm like, I can't use this half of my body, right? And I didn't say that. I didn't tell them or anything, but I could just feel this lump, and I was like, ooh, I could start to jab at it, and so it's just part of our genetic makeup. His just happened to be in his throat.
Man, that is an unfortunate. This was a cyst, where this bandit is.
I don't even know if they have a term for why it happens or.
Yeah, of all the unfortunate places to get one, the throat seems like.
Yeah, I mean, anywhere up in because then they had to get a specialist who then had done it in that area before, and then they had to feel confident in doing so, and then when he had it done the first time, it was fine for a while, but then now they came back and they realized they had to go deeper and take more out, and it was just a whole lot of stuff that could happen, but the key element was that just because my kiddo came out that way, right? And I can't control any of that. But that also doesn't mean that I have to take my insecurity as a parent and worry for him in all these situations he's going to experience throughout his whole life. Yeah. Right? It's not, and that's something that I noticed, and my parents are fantastic. I'm not saying anything bad about them, but my dad really likes to have that control of the situation. If he could keep me safe, right, in a manner to keep me safe, he would do so. And so part of my behavior growing up was to not let him do that because I didn't like it, right? I wanted to go try new things. Part of my nature is to go and push limits and do new things and try new things.
Yeah, as we all should.
Right, and to me it felt suffocated. It was like, no, you do school, you can't do any sports. I would try to sneak out and go to practice, like crazy. And I'm like, no, I'm fine. They go, you broke your collarbone last year. And I go, doesn't matter. I go, I like it. I like the feeling. It's like it was like my first feeling of what it felt like to train. Right? It was like, like whatever this, yes, right? That success feeling or whatever it is. Like I was addicted to that because it means I was pushing a new limit of myself. I didn't know that as a dumb kid, but I know that now. And so it just felt like I was being suffocated from that because of the fear of my father not wanting me to go through some of this stuff. And I get it because, the concussion thing with that kid had just happened. And then in the 8th grade, I got a concussion, and they were worried that things were going to go bad. And, I understand the concern because it was really bad. But the hospital they took me to, they also at the same time looked at my parents and go, they were in Colorado, so they called them on the phone, worried as shit. And they go, I blacked out. I'll just go through the whole story. Let's go through my life, shall we? And then I'll let you get back to the main point of all of this, which was the children, and how Glory taught me about learning that lesson with him, which I'm grateful for because I think it'll change his entire life. Because I got to take the negative experiences from the dad situation, but then apply the positive from this lesson that I learned from Glory. And now Madden can have, his dad has the knowledge to allow him to do the things that he would want to try, which is great. I would never got there on my own, right? It just was doing it and trying a new thing. But the concussion was, just a summer party. They had a slip and slide, right? And they just rolled this tarp down this hill, like lined it with tires. And so I had managed to do this thing where, like, in order to get away from getting, like, hurt and bullied, I developed my comedy. So I was able to make the popular kids laugh. So that means I was like their clown, and they were not in a negative way, like they probably didn't know, but they were like, Chase is hilarious, right? But I did not fit in with the group. Like, it was very clear. It was like, well, we're like
a bit of a coping mechanism and a way to get in without actually being in the group.
Yes, but because it kept me from safety, because then they could be like, hey, you can't mess with you can't mess with our thing. That's it's Chase. That's our thing. And I'm like, so I developed that. And so I was at one of these parties, and they thought it'd be funny to, like, make me run. So I was at the bottom of this thing, and they thought as a group, obviously the dumb eighth graders were like, oh, the pretty girls are up there. Let's wreck Chase and go down the slide, right? And he's not looking. And I wasn't. I was talking to someone else. So his job was to keep me on the tarp. Their job was to hit me and, like, take me out and be funny, I guess.
Shit.
So when they took me out, it just upended me. And like I said, I have an apple on a pencil, right? It's very pliable. So all my weight went right to the spot on my temple right here, right on a rock. Boom. Immediately. And I remember hitting it hard. And I got up, and I have no pain. Like, I go, that should have hurt, huh? And I think her name was Sarah. She's like, I mean, I think so. And I'm like, it doesn't.
Oh, shit.
And the next thing you know, I have this weird split vision where, like, this part's blurry and this part isn't. I'm like, I got soap in my eye. It won't go away.
Oh, no.
And then I immediately get nauseous. So I start vomiting. Then I keep vomiting and passing out, No one can find me for a while. Then they finally find me, but I can't talk. So then I start to...
Fuck.
So in my brain, right? In my brain, I'm very dizzy. I'm disoriented. I have a massive head trauma. Like, it's trauma to the head at this point. And I hand my phone to the mom, who's like, finds me. She's like, oh my gosh. And I hand her the phone. And then I go, in my head, I say, call my parents. Or don't call my parents. Call my grandparents. And she heard, like, it was just gibberish. She heard nothing. And so she's freaking out. They've all been like, they've all been drinking. Like, they're like, who's going to drive Chase he's got to go to the hospital. And it's so funny. And then they were just like, we'll just pick him up. Someone has to drive him. And then I remember a red van or a red car of some sort. They put me in it. And then that's the last thing I remember.
Shit.
That's 6:00. And then I woke up butt naked on like an operating table with nothing on it, like flat like this table, and it's just cold. And I'm naked.
Fuck.
And I go, what? And there's like these lights all over me. And I'm looking, and it was so for 4 hours, I was awake and conscious, but not conscious in my head. So I was doing things that were like I was still active and doing things. So they called my parents apparently, or my grandparents. This is all word of mouth, but they were like, they got a panic phone call from like the hospital, and then from the mom, and then from everyone else, and they go, and my parents go, we thought you were gonna be like mentally handicapped. And I go, why? And they go, that's what they said. And I'm like, where'd you take me? I still don't remember the hospital. I'm like, where did you take me? Never take me there again. And so when I came to, I was wondering why all the doctors and the pretty nurses were like, hi there, hello. I'm like, why are you talking to me like that? You know? They thought I was going to stay like that. And so that just happened around the same time with the brain bleed on the other person. So it was kind of like all those things.
So I bet your dad freaked out.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. He freaked out if I didn't wear sunscreen on a sunny day.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. He goes, Chase, are you going to the pool? I go, no. He goes, yes, you are. Put on your swim shirt. So I'm already getting bullied, right? I just got a concussion. So the popular kids, I'm not their clown anymore. So I have no safety. And now I have to put on sunscreen, right? He has to walk me to the pool, right? Make sure I put on sunscreen. So he watches and makes sure I put on sunscreen. I'm like, I'm not doing it. And it's just a fence. And he's like, Chase, put on the sunscreen. I'm like, so I'm lathering sunscreen on. And I have like my rash guard, right? I have to wear like one of those in the pool.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, this is not good. So anyway, it's just kind of like, and I get it that it's only because they love me so. I understand that now as an adult, right? But at the same time,
it's kind of hard to empathize with when you're however old you were at that point.
13.
13? Yeah. Yeah.
Right during that ripe age of like, yeah.
Man, 13-year-olds are, yeah, they're not nice in general.
No.
Like,
No.
Yeah.
Also, I can only imagine it got worse with all the stuff they have now. But
Yeah.
that's a long story and a lot about me that they probably didn't need to know. But it is the basis of, like, that's parenting is a part of failure. Like, all of the stuff I learned beforehand, I had to fail or experience the negative that now Madden won't have to go through, right? And I'm not saying necessarily negative from my parents. I'm not saying negative from the classmates. It's just the experience and taking something from it that I can then not necessarily use as a thing to protect my kid from, but understand if it happens to him. And then it allows him to choose. It puts his life in his hands while also still allowing me to parent him. And like I said, a part of that was taught to me at Glory MMA in the way of jiu-jitsu. So when I'd roll with some of you guys, it'd be the same guillotine. But maybe this time you didn't, right? Maybe this time I learned, right? And I put my head somewhere else, right? Or I went low instead of going right to your stomach. You know what I mean? And then you just move my head, and then, like it's just something like that was enough to like give me the satisfaction of success rather than like trying to strive for the stuff I never got as a young kid, like the validation from sports and having a trophy, or because I used to watch the kids on the field, and all I wanted was to like not feel insecure and like made fun of. I just wanted to be the other guys who never had to worry about it. But now I would much rather be the kid who went through all the shit than the guy who got the trophy on the field, because I feel like in that scenario I'm the one who wins. You can always go, hey, I was badass back then. And you can lean on being a badass whatever you were. But then you say that as a 26-year-old.
Yeah,
and you're like,
it's not a lot to lean on.
Right. But to a lot of people, that's all they have. And I'm like, I'm really glad that I could extrapolate, I think it's the right word, the needed lessons, not only for me to recover and go through that myself, but then also pass it down to my kid. Which I think is just an amazing part of this journey that we're floating through space on called life. You know what I mean? It's just way deeper than we think. it's not just about the material or financial success or this and that. It's just like there's so much more out there. And I know that you have a big overview of this deep philosophy that's just, it's nice to see someone as intellectual as you when it comes to knowing all of that, right? Whether it's coming to breaking down a phrase that just sounds like nothing. Whatever the one was, the meditation on death or death.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Meditating on death daily. Memento Mori is the Latin phrase.
The Latin phrase, right?
Yeah, and that's where it came from. So it's Stoics and in ancient Rome. There's like Marcus Aurelius. I think he was one of the. I mean, people have been saying that for a long time, so it's hard to attribute like, oh yeah, this is the person who said it first.
Yeah, he said that. Marcus said that.
But a lot of people have said it. He was one of the more famous guys to have said it, and that has been a huge part of my life, especially as I've been in martial arts, and I've taken that very seriously for about 4 years, but in 2021 it hit home in a really it came home. And so in February of 2021, my wife and I were expecting our baby, and it was we were getting pretty close to the due date. And we hadn't gotten any ultrasounds at that point. We were going to do the birth at home. We had been working with a midwife and stuff like that. So we had just been through the majority of the pregnancy, just thinking happy-go-lucky pregnancy, and and actually very similar to how you were saying with Madden's mother, the buildup of fluid. It was actually a very similar situation, which caused my wife's water to break early.
Madden was like 3.5 weeks, 4 weeks early.
I don't remember exactly how early we were. It was somewhere in that range, but maybe a little bit more. Maybe a little bit more. It was early enough to be like concerned.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was. I don't think of myself as an optimistic person. I think of myself as a we'll see this person.
Right.
So there's kind of like it's like, oh, it could still be a good thing, and just like kind of this like blind optimism. Like I prefer to approach situations in like reserve judgment.
Yeah.
And be like, well, it could be bad. It could be really bad. It could not be that bad. It could end up being like nothing. So like, but we just need to wait and see, and reserve judgment and wait and see. And this idea of patience, and like I've heard patience defined as like the ability to withstand all other emotion, and because like there's good other emotions, and then there's like anger and anxiety and sadness and but like the ability to withstand like whatever the emotion is, whether it's joy, whether it's like frustration, like in MMA, man, you win a fight, that's a rush, that's a really, really good feeling,
right?
But
absolutely,
you don't want to you want to be patient through that. You want to withstand that. That's not something that you can't live there. You can't live there, and you can't live there on the reverse end and just allow yourself to be jerked around by your emotions. So in this situation, as we were going to the hospital, my wife and I, Heather, I was trying to just stay as patient as possible, and I was working on surrendering myself to whatever needed to be done in the situation. And so it's like when
absolutely just shows the knowledge that you had. I mean, it's just because I had no. I mean, it was mostly just shock, but like I just rode with whatever it was. But the same thing. Patience was something that I have. How do I put this? In times I have very little.
Same. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so in order to, so like during that time, I'm like, no, I need results, like this and that. And so so you mentioned like anxiety, and that's something that I have that I struggle with daily, and we'll have to I talk with someone about and do cognitive therapy to try and develop out of them, because I can be good on the outside, but then I develop this thing where like it has to come out. So my body then just starts to sweat profusely from armpits and areas, and I'm like, what do I do? So I had to go talk to someone, which is fine, but it's usually because of a lack of patience. And so the fact that you had that in this situation, I mean, you're amazing, Stephen.
I really do have to credit that bit to my parents and some of my older siblings. I have a long a big family, 4 brothers and 4 sisters, and
wow,
yeah. But they like the type of like expansive mindset, like take control of your life mindset type of thing, like a resilient mindset, and like they kind of helped point me in that direction. And then it was through martial arts that became a discipline for me. Really, for me, martial arts kind of replaced religion in a large way, and because I feel like a religious practice should be a practice,
right?
And I felt like a lot of modern church was like entertainment.
Is entertainment.
Yeah, and then the whole like literal thing with like people literally believing it's just like, oh, like this version was good enough for Paul, so this version of the Bible is good enough for Paul, so it's good enough
Correct.
for me. And it's like, hey, you guys know that Paul didn't read an English Bible, right?
Yeah,
like,
they were like,
like this
what
wasn't this wasn't what Jesus had. You know that, right?
They go, wait, you're telling me he spoke something different? You go, our Jesus speaks English, and you're like, what?
Yeah. So there was just holes where the religion wasn't serving me, and so like martial arts really became the practice for me that is in my life that is closest to a religious practice, and through which I kind of solve my existential angst, if you would.
Right. It's a good place to do it.
Yeah, I should. And so ADHD all over the place, all that to
there
get
we
back
go.
to.
Bing, bing, bing.
Yeah, we've hit any other topics we need. So all that to say, our daughter just like had formed in a way in the womb in which it was similar to like there being you were saying a quarter-sized hole. So for Evelyn, she actually didn't have a skin membrane to hold the organs in the lower half of her body in. So she would just formed in a way that like she was alive. There was life there, but it wasn't sustainable outside of the womb.
Yeah.
And it's a gamble that you take when you decide that you want to try to make a life, or when you accidentally make a life, or,
right.
In the process, it's just like and like some people try to point to God for comfort there, and they try to go to that. For me, that's not very comforting to me. For me, where I go is just relaxing into the inevitability of it, and so this idea of Memento Mori, remember that you will die, or Trey's tattoo, All Men Die.
All Men Die.
And it's like, it's true. Like, and if a religion is an exploration of truth, then why not start with that one? And why not have that be a basis for your life? So that has been a pillar through that process. And for Evelyn, in naming her, her name, Evelyn, the root of the word is kind of ambiguous where it came from, but one of the potential translations for it is desired one. And so my wife, she had a lot of influence on picking that one, and she really wanted to say that despite the outcome, and this even ties back in because in some like really perverse way, it's like Evelyn like was like an evolutional fuck up almost, like the process for making a life just went wrong. And as heartbreaking as that is, like, it's a necessary part of life in order for life to perpetuate.
Right.
And as cold as it sounds, it's like fuck ups are entirely necessary, and failure is entirely necessary.
Right.
And so the name Evelyn being desired one, and my wife and I really wanting to communicate to our daughter, for we didn't know how long we would get. We ended up only getting a few minutes, but just wanting her to, as best as we could, to at least feel that we wanted her and that we loved her, and to feel that she was desired, and for us to remind ourselves in our own processes that, like, despite the outcome, that she was desired. And then her second name was Valor, and for me, Valor comes to this idea of facing death with an open heart. If and that might give the wrong connotation depending on like how the word heart lands for you.
Right.
But like facing death, bravely, relaxed, and open, like not being caught up in fear around it, not being caught up in
Controlled by it.
Yeah. Some people are really controlled by their fear of it, and so, like, I've tried to just base all of what I do around my training and my preparation, and then around like what I do for business. It's just like I'm like Memento Mori, and I do not, like, each day like is a gift, and it's like that's the flip side to the coin. So it's like if on one side you have death, it's like on the other side you have life, and it's like the death is what makes life actually taste so sweet. And
yeah,
it
that's the most yeah
so that was actually Evelyn passed away in February of 2021, and that was right when I was getting my fight career kicked off. And then in September of 2021, my dad actually passed away, and he had been it was ruled a COVID death, technically double pneumonia. So it was like what was happening, what they were saying and describing of what was happening, of like people would get COVID and then their immune system would be suppressed and then they would get pneumonia, and then that's what they would pass away from. And I'm not trying to say anything or pointing any fingers or anything like that, but there were things about the treatment that we we know now that we didn't know then, and
Right.
or that some people knew then and others were disagreeing very strenuously, to put it mildly.
Your restraint is very well noted.
So he passed away, and that was I was in fight camp while he was in the hospital and in the ICU, and so I ended up fighting back to back weekends while he was in the ICU, while he was in the hospital, and for that year, it ended up being, I think it was like 4 fights, or maybe all 5 of my fights took place within like 12 months or 13 months.
Oh my goodness.
Most of my fights, there was a point where like I had gotten to my 3rd fight, and that one was wrapped up, and it was like, man, for all of them, I've had like either somebody is like during fight camp, somebody's either passed away or just passed away or was about to pass away, and so it was very as I was beginning MMA, it was very formative to my exploration of the martial arts, experiencing my dad passing away and experiencing my daughter passing away in the same year, as well as fighting how much I did fight, and the process of, for me, just like in the situations with my dad and with Evelyn, just surrendering to the fight almost, and deciding that on a day-to-day basis, like I'm going to do enough work that I will be proud regardless of the outcome, which I've not yet managed to do. Even though I've won all my fights, I still pride is not like I still have way more work to do before I'll be any close to proud of myself. It's just I'm so early on in the process, and maybe you can say some of the guys that I fought are tough, or maybe you can say that they're not tough or whatever, but it doesn't really matter. A win over somebody in my amateur career, that fight's not gonna fight my next fight. Right. I gotta fight my next fight. So, exactly. And I'm not. So I aspire to train in a way in which, regardless of the outcome, I would be proud, and to train in a way to, and in fighting, this is an area of life where I take it very, very seriously, and I'm preparing, in a sense, to die, and I'm preparing to leave it all out. And to completely surrender to the outcome, because I don't know what type of preparation they're going to do. I don't know how prepared. I can only do what I can do, right? And then
you show up,
and show up on fight night, and then see. And it's like, at the end of the day, whoever it is that I'm fighting, they're going to be a human being. Right. They eat, they shit, they piss. They're a human being, and it's they're still vulnerable. They still have a neck I can grab onto. Exactly. They still have a jaw I can hit. They still have a liver I can tag.
They bleed.
They do. And so do I.
Right.
And
but your humility to know that also is what changes. Even I can feel it sitting a couple feet from you. So if I'm the other guy locked in a cage with you, and I can obviously sense that if you're gonna get close to me, right? I can read it on you, right? If I'm most amateur fighters who are like, oh, I'm tough, right? I'm not rounding off all amateur fighters, but if you're, I'm not trying to generalize it, but if they have a wrong idea of why they're doing what they're doing, they're going to find out pretty quick.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And you have it locked in here. Your fortitude and everything you've said is, I'm blessed to know you. What's your wife's name?
Heather.
Mm-hmm. I'm telling you right now, this episode, this conversation, this is for Evelyn. Okay, I feel so close. Remember when I was describing off camera the like souls kind of connecting a little bit?
Yeah.
Do you feel what I'm like? This intensity.
Mm-hmm.
This is the stuff that I live for. You know, like this is what. And again, we didn't pry. We just got there in this naturally organic way, and when it comes out and it sounds the way it does when you're locked into this with another person, it just is different than talking in a weird way. I understand that's weird because you have to talk to people, but
no. But I even though this is my first podcast, I know I can tell what you're saying, and
this will not be your last.
I'm well aware.
Yes, we will do this a lot. But I just wanted to. I didn't mean to cut through your thing, but like this is for her, and I did not.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I didn't get a chance to obviously know her, but I, as a parent, I understand how hard that probably was. You know what I mean? Mm. And you know, I only get a glimpse. You know, I don't, and a glimpse is already not too much, but it's tough just to try and put it in my head. Mm. Especially now that I have my kiddo. But this is for her and for your wife. So.
Thank you so much.
And I hope she's doing great. You know, I hope that you both seem like you have a bond, like this strong thing. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? So it's just, now I just want to meet her, you know?
Yeah, I would say for anyone listening to this podcast that if you don't take anything else away, take away that, like, once you die your first death to yourself, then you're actually free to live your next life. And as long as you allow death to be this negative thing in your life, this this weight that you carry, you'll be a slave to it. And if you want to be free to actually enjoy life, to be free to actually live and to live for real and to live full out, to be brave enough to go take failure, because in a way, like, failure is a mini death. Yeah. Like, it's a death of an ego for sure. And so, like, if I can encourage you guys with an idea that you could take and apply to your own life, it is to embrace failure and embrace death, embrace like with death your sparkling water. Get your sparkling water, but remember that it's inevitable and that it is what makes life so beautiful. And like, the very fact that life exists means that death is an inevitability, and so there's no use in arguing with God about that. I'll just leave it at that.
And the moment, like I said, that's hard to depict in a way that everyone can kind of universally understand. But I think failure is the overarching piece of that, right? And it doesn't, that's why I was talking about why this podcast is important. So I called it Comes in Waves, because that is what life is. You ride the small ones, that giant one comes, it takes you under maybe, right? You don't know if you're going to hit the surface, right? Like, I just imagine, like, someone who's, like, that's kind of how life has rolled with me. It's been small, big, large, but you ride all of them to the end because that's what makes it so beautiful to be here, is that despite every, it's like, it's the same way that people can use, like, the devil as the plot, right? The bad guy, right? Whether it comes to religious or whatever your spiritual devil is, right? It's like, that's the person holding you back from living the life you're supposed to live. And it's like, we all go through that, whatever you call it. It's just like you can go from as small as like, today I didn't die, right? I lived a piece of something that is a one. I don't know if GaryVee says it's a 1 in 400 trillion chance.
Yeah, when he talks, when he talks about conception,
Yes,
he's like, you won the lottery. You're a human.
Right, you're here. It's 1 in 400 trillion. Like, it's, and the fact when you take that with you, then it makes it that, like you said, that much sweeter to be blessed to go through the big ones, the small ones, and to hopefully feel like in this moment that we could share that.
Yeah.
You know, share that piece of a wave that, you know, took you under and you had no, for me, it's like I would have no idea if I would even come to the surface. You know what I mean? In that scenario, and the toughness of your family, you, your wife, and this entire situation, your dad fighting, the culmination of getting to fighting and then getting there, and then these things happen, right? It's like Trey says, the desert children, right? Like it's, and there's no idea. Like there would be no idea, right? It just was like, there is something, this is all I knew, right? I was like, Steven is the guy who has the knowledge, the philosophy, and the skill to back up everything he brings in here, right? And now that I get to speak with you about it, it's palpable. I can feel it. Like
thank you.
It's, to me, it's mind-boggling that I even get the opportunity to talk to you in this manner and have this place and do this way. And that's all I can really like put into words. I have for the first time in my entire life, I don't have words right now. on a show that requires words, I have zero at this moment, other than in all of just who you are. If I can praise you as an individual that I know.
I think like it's really easy to get into like just like appreciating role models and a little bit more extreme like idol worship. But for me, it's even my heroes. I really work on, and then like there's people I call them kind of like my anti-heroes, of people who I don't want to be like.
Yeah.
But it's like imagining in their life and their experiences, like everyone has their own trials and their own problems, their own bullshit that they're dealing with.
Correct.
And I think a lot of them handle it really admirably.
Mm-hmm.
And I think humanity in general, like you're not going to get through life without family members. I mean, like in a way, Evelyn was, I want to be really careful with how I phrase this, because it exists within a multitude of paradoxical thought processes and like things that don't exactly like always add up, but from a certain perception, you could consider like Evelyn as one of the lucky ones, because she never had to have a family member die.
Right.
And so
I've also heard the same.
I don't want anyone to twist that in
They're not fucking going to.
Yeah. But you just have to be careful nowadays, you know.
I know.
But with that being said, it's like everyone had, like, hard things happen. Life is tragic, like, and like Gary Vaynerchuk says it all the time. Like Jordan Peterson touches on this a lot. A lot of different people touch on this of just this idea that like life is hard. So like you should actually like go out and do something that makes the hardship worth it.
Right.
And for me, well, at the end of the day, like I want to go to bed knowing that I've done my best and I've given my all that day. And of course things like in training camps, things get get more intense and more specific and stuff like that. But like at the end of the day, I want to get to a place of satisfaction in myself and in my work. And the thing is, I never quite allow myself to fully go there because I know there's always more. And so like I have that as a goal.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
But I know that I'm never going to achieve it. I know that there's always going to be more to do, that there's always going to be more to work on. And I know that like the game is like the game of life, if you were, or the game of MMA. It's like it will pass me over one day. It will pass me up someday. Like someday I'm going to die too, and everything like, I mean, hundreds and hundreds of years from now, if they're even humans, it's like nothing's going to be known about me. And it's like at some point, like disappear completely from all forms of consciousness. Like my name won't even be remembered.
Even the ones who remembered can still be remembered improperly.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's like either way, you're remembered either wrong, improperly, written down wrong. You know what I mean? If it's something great. But then at the same time, if you think you are great, you're still 100 years from now that won't know you.
Yeah. And so for me, it's like, what am I doing this for? I'm not doing it to be known in 100 years. I'm not like, I'm doing this for me right now.
Right.
And like, I'm doing this for me to be proud of myself, for me to be happy with the work that I've put in, because I do feel like I have been given a serendipitous combination of talent and opportunity, and then with my own personal inclinations towards violence, it's like I feel like I have a real shot here, and so like I want to give it everything I have, and I want to work at it in a way in which the result doesn't matter.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I remember a core memory of also where it went from not knowing you to then knowing, around the gym, or like knowing them, like the philosophy, the education, the person who is Steven in this moment is someone that is like you. Like, I feel like you're someone that I, like, am drawn to, like, needed. Like, this conversation is needed. Remember I was talking about the deepening the pool of you as in this existence at this moment. This conversation will make me a better father, it'll make me look at my day-to-day different. Because you go, today I'm happy with today. And you're describing this scenario where that's not satisfied, which is the Matthew McConaughey speech when he won that award. Have you ever seen that? Where he's chasing himself.
Yeah.
It's me 10 years from now, right? That big old speech, and he goes, am I still hell no, I'm not. It's the 10 years from now, right? It's like you're always chasing that. And that was powerful because he's literally in a spot with it's True Detective and a bunch of these shows, and he's saying that. He's like, I'm still not satisfied. But I also remember the moment when you've gone through all this adversity, and now I know at the timeline of the adversity that you had to go through with these fights, and then the coach looking at you and going like, you are UFC. Like, this is a professional thing. I can see it in your eyes. I can see you, James Krause is talking about you. Everyone, and I'm like, I go like this, like, it wasn't, I'm trying to word it like, those are all superficial statements. But the core meaning of what it meant is that you have the attitude and the mind and the mental fortitude to do anything, and this is what you're doing for you now. So you can do it. You will achieve it because you won't settle for anything less. Yeah,
I would actually like to correct you. I don't actually feel like I could do anything. There are like there's
we'll take it like back.
And where I'm going with it's kind of this idea of like the best possible version of you is not a version that can do anything, because if you can do anything, you're entirely untapped potential. And so in order to say,
That just hit me now. I was like, what did you say? Holy.
so in order to say that you can do anything, it means that you aren't saying yes to any one thing, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And so, yeah, there's a whole like jack of all trades is better than master of one. But there's also the idea of like really taking your life and devoting it to a something that you could work on for the rest of your life and never stop improving on. So like these skill sets that have infinite return on them. So like you can always get better at jiu-jitsu. You
Right.
can always get better at art. You can always get better at video editing. You can always get better at, like, you pick a craft and you can always improve.
Right.
And this process of mastering a craft. And I do actually feel very limited with like my options and society as a whole, simply because like we were talking about patience earlier.
Yeah.
I just don't have fucking patience for people.
No,
And
it's getting smaller.
I'm working on it, and I'm working on it, but like I feel like fighting is like I was born for it. And
I mean, right now, not only if someone just saw you, just by the way, I was gonna bring this up in a way that wasn't right in here, but I have to say it now. With the hair and the beard and like just the way that I'm watching like your eyes and your eyebrows and the muscles. I'm like, I've played a lot of Assassin's Creed Valhalla and the Vikings. I'm like, this guy looks like one of the guys from the game who like goes and raids the village, and I'm like, I think we have a modern day one of those here, and I know him. I think I get to talk to him now. But
Hell yeah.
like it's like all of this stuff. I fully believe in you and your potential and everything that you want. It's just like the humility to know the difference is well beyond your years, my friend.
I don't. Years don't really mean a whole lot.
I wanted to end with thanking you for coming in here, being vulnerable, and opening that up to us, and especially to me, because it will never, in my lifetime, I will never forget today. That makes sense? Everything we've talked about, everything we've gone through, everything you've gone through, everything we've shared, it's now a part of me. It makes me a deeper person, and it makes me a better father. It'll make me a better son. I now am, by talking with you through some of this, understand my parents better. Like, things I would never have gotten otherwise. And I want you in here again. There's so much that we need to talk about, and I just want to leave this open for you to plug anything if you have any.
Yeah,
anything.
well, I think for martial arts, and I love what you are doing here, which is making the ideas and the things that make individuals strong accessible to people, and you're doing, like, we have martial artists, we have these people training to become MMA fighters, and these Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioners, these combat sports enthusiasts,
These technicians at the craft.
who are, like, they're learning these life lessons, and these are valuable lessons that are available to anyone. I mean, you do, like, some of them you just have to train in order to get the benefit of it, but some of them, like, the value of martial arts can really be communicated through discussion and through conversation, and I think that it's one of the greatest. I think it's like music. It's like music is in almost every single culture.
Yes.
And the cultures in which it doesn't, it's not really a thing. Those are like the exceptions that prove the rule. And fighting is in every single culture. So
It
it's
is.
one of the and it, like, people have been fighting for like fighting existed way before doctors or lawyers or so.
That's right.
People are like, man, you're weird. You're a fighter, and it's just like, man, you're weird. You drive a car. Man, you're weird.
You were like, did you know that we used to go like this? And then we hated that you said, and then I fought you. You know that? I take the rock, and I was like, oh, and you're like, fisticuffs, and you're like, okay.
Yeah. So it's actually everyone with the modern jobs that are all weird. But fighting, it's in organized combat, I think especially through combat sports, is one of the best methodologies of reaching as many people as possible, reaching more people, and helping them to find the strength within themselves to improve their own life.
Absolutely.
And I'm so proud of the adversity that you've overcome to work on this mission, bringing this whole podcast, this whole studio to life.
Thank you. Thank you, man.
And working on giving us young and upcoming fighters a platform to come and speak on. And I really, really appreciate it. So
absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Stephen, thank you for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, we are out. I'm going to link all your stuff in the description, anything about Stephen. You're welcome anytime, man. You're like a brother. I feel that now. I really do. Like, it's just that connection. And I think I'm gonna do we're gonna live stream. I think a fight companion. So, if you want to come in, I'll set that up. I'll have the cameras set up. We'll have all this. It'll be the podcast, kind of run the same way.
Oh yeah.
Gomi was talking about it. People were like, "Do you ever do fight companion?" I'm like,
we should do it.
The coolest thing would be to do this and then watch the fights and be like, "Hey, these are professionals who are watching." And so
amateur still, but
sure,
soon.
But Stephen, thank you, man. We'll let you get out of here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.